Can you turn 45,000 pesos into 20 million pesos? Sounds like a scam, almost too good to be true. But I assure you it's not, because today I'm making this video to show you the exact math behind the retirement strategy that we've taken, the generational wealth strategy that we've taken in our own finances, and to show you how it actually works. I'm going to show you the principles that make it work and the lessons that we've learned from people who are experts in this field: wealth managers, financial advisors, people who have built generational wealth for themselves, and we've applied it into our own setting. So if you're here and you've been spending years building wealth and you have disposable income and you're looking for the strategy that can help you to create generational wealth so that you can move into retirement with comfort and peace of mind and be a blessing to the people around you, then this video is for you. This plan is something that we are doing in our own personal finances, once again, and it's something that will only require us to invest for another year and a half. And after that, essentially, we've hit our milestone already. And it's a really good strategy, and I'm going to show you the math in a bit. So let's dive straight into it. So before we start, let me just make a very quick disclaimer. I am not a financial advisor. Anything that I show here, numbers wise, they're just projections. And don't take this as financial advice. I am not qualified to give any of them. I am just a dude in his mid 30s trying to coast retire as soon as possible. And the reason why is because of these two ladies right here. These are our daughters, Alexa, our eldest, and Sam, our youngest. And these two girls are my why. My wife and I, we live in the Philippines and we run an online business from home. And we've been raising these two amazing daughters, and we want to optimize our life to give these two the best life possible. One thing I realized, if I want to do that, is I need to build generational wealth. For this very reason, we grew up with nothing and we built from the ground up. So no, we know what it's like to not have generational wealth. And we've seen the issues around Filipinos being stuck as breadwinners because they have to care for aging family members. They have to take care of aging parents, even to a point, even extended family members. And I don't want to do that to my children. That's the reason why I want to build wealth so that I can retire comfortably. And so Alexa and Sam don't have to always look back over their shoulders and ask the question, how's mom and dad going to pay their electricity bill this month? And so if I want to give them that life so that they can chase after their own milestones, their own goals, then I need to prepare as early as now. That's the reason why I'm doing that. And I'm really trying why I'm also passionate about teaching this to as many Filipinos as I can, because I believe that to really be if we really want to set the next generation up for success, then it really falls on us to prepare financially. So the question now is, how do we do that? What is the methodology? What is the strategy that we can use? There are three that I want to go over today. And the third one is the one that I really want to zero in on and talk about as the strategy of this video. The first one is traditional retirement. So work 30, 40 years, save 5 to 10,000 pesos every single month. And then by the age of 65 to 70, you can retire comfortably. But the problem with traditional retirement is that it takes a very long time. And if you do it slowly with discipline, of course, that's still a good strategy, by the way, better than nothing. But there are some uh, problems that could arise in the middle. What happens if you need a big amount of cash, right? Because you want to send your child to a better college, or like a marriage, comes into play, and your children want a nice wedding. So in these scenarios, you can't make those expenses because I need to prepare for my own retirement first. The second option, which is also a little bit popular right now, is something called the FIRE movement: financial independence, retire early. And this again is such an amazing strategy. If you want to retire, it works. It's better than nothing. But again, it also has its own problems, because if you go for this strategy, then you're probably going to have to invest heavily and live on 20, 30, 40% of your income for 20 years at a shot to retire at 40 years old to 50 years old. And once again, there's nothing wrong with these two strategies, but they're not the only ones that work. And so the big paradigm shift for my wife and I, for Cess and I, is when we discovered Coast Financial Independence. You're taking on a shorter number of years as a sprint to get to something that we call your Coast FI number, your Coast Financial Independence number, which I'll show in a little while. But coasting financial independence, what this looks like is you're contributing heavily early on and letting the power of time and compounding grow your money for you. So here's a calculator to show you like an example, and these are the figures that we have. So I put in the fire number or the retirement number that I want to reach in order to have a certain amount of passive income by the time I'm 65 years old, which is the age that I put here for retirement. I'll probably do a completely different breakdown video to explain all of that in detail. But just for now, to show you, right, that's the number that I want to have by the time that we retire. And this right here is the the net worth that I have, and then we have the Coast FI number, the Coast Financial Independence number, which is the amount that you need at a certain age, and the age that you will be at that stage of your life, where you can stop investing altogether and you just allow your money to coast compound over time. And so that really brings us to the number that I shared today, which was the 45,000 pesos. Now, 45,000 pesos per month, okay? Sorry if I sounded clickbaity in the beginning, but you wouldn't be in this video up to this point if I did not tell you it was per month. So I hope that you stick around and give me a chance here. But 45,000 pesos a month for 24 months. Now, this is the number essentially that we've applied in our own personal finances to be able to build our retirement nest egg. So 45,000 for 24 months, that actually adds up to about a million pesos and 80,000 pesos, right? So let's round it off at a million. And my wife and I, when we were looking at, okay, where are we going to invest our money so that we can actually prepare for retirement and how much do we actually need? We talked to a wealth manager and he asked us the question, do you have a million pesos? And I was like, we have that kind of money right now, and it's just it's just sitting there. It's not really growing at the rate that we want. And so he said, this is what we're going to do. We're going to break that into 24 payments over the next 24 months. And so essentially, if you divide that, reverse this equation, then you get back to 45,000 pesos a month. And you put that into a certain investment with something that we call peso cost averaging or dollar cost averaging, which I'll explain later on. But what you're doing here is you're trying to turn these three levers. You're trying to pull down on these three levers: time horizon, growth rate, and cost of living. So, what are these three levers? Let me explain them. Number one is time horizon, because starting early gives you and your money more time to grow. And the best example of this is this man right here, Warren Buffett. What many people don't realize is that the reason why Warren Buffett is a billionaire is not because he was a really good investor. It's not just that, but he was a really good investor for a very long time. Warren Buffett started even before he was 20. I think he started at 13 or 14. Don't quote me, I could be wrong. But he started very early on, and then he built up his wealth over time. In fact, 90 something percent of his wealth was built after he reached the age of 60 years old. And so essentially, what I'm trying to say here is that what you need if you want to grow your investment is not just more capital, but more time. Because let's face it, as Filipinos, we don't really have a whole lot of capital. It's not a secret that earning money is hard in the Philippines unless you have a business that is generating income in a higher currency, which is something that probably a lot of people have, but not everyone has that. But if you don't have capital, then you definitely have time. Hopefully, if you're watching this and you're 30 to 40 years old, you have time. You have a lot of time still to let your capital grow. Because if you're 30 years old, for example, and you want to retire by 65, you still have 35 years to allow your money to grow. And I'll show you in a little while just how powerful that is. The second lever is your growth rate. Accessing the best growth rate can make all the difference. And so what you want is you want to find an investment that can give you the best growth rate possible. And normally we look at investments and we think, oh, wow, what you need to shoot for is 50 to 100% returns in 3 months. Now, that's a scam. So if you watch this video and you're thinking that that's what I'm going to teach you right now, look for an investment that can double your income or double your money in 20, 30 days, then this is not the strategy, right? The strategy we're going for is a boring type of investment, something that can give you anywhere between 6 to 10%. My personal favorite is the S&P 500. So S&P 500, it's the index that tracks the top 500 companies in the US stock exchange, and it returns around 10% per year. Now, 10% per year might not sound like much. I mean, like if I have a million, that will be what, 1.1 million at the end of 1 year. That's not a very life changing amount. But see, the power here essentially is in the compounding exponential growth, which is what happens when you have a consistent growth rate. I mean, of course, it's not consistent because it fluctuates. But over a long period of time, you'll kind of see that growth rate will make sense over the long term. Most people's mental model is a savings account at 3%. But 3%, it barely beats inflation. So they never take compounding seriously. But the math shown in a little while will show you that if you have a million pesos, it can actually get to 20 million in about 30 years or less. The third lever is cost of living, tapping into the power of geo arbitrage. And this is something that I put into the Filipino context. I create finance and investment videos specifically for Filipinos. And, I mean, if you're here and you're not Filipino, I'm grateful that you're here. And hopefully there is something that you can pull out. But like the specific people that I'm trying to help here are Filipinos. So if you're an OFW or if you're a Filipino business owner and you have the power to invest now, what you want is to tap into the power of geo arbitrage. The question that changes everything is this: how much do you actually need to live well? Now, the answer in the Philippines will be very different from places like Singapore, the US, Australia, or Europe, because the concept there is geo arbitrage. You're building wealth in a global market like the S&P 500, which is the US stock exchange, but you're spending money in a local economy. You're investing in dollars, but spending in pesos. People calculate retirement based on where they live right now. So if you're an OFW, you're probably calculating retirement based on how much does it cost to live in Singapore. Or if you're in Metro Manila, then how much it costs to live in Metro Manila. So the number feels impossible. But imagine this, right? And this is my personal example. I'm not saying that you should do this, but the way that we've approached this is we chose to live in the province. We have a business that earns in dollars because we serve foreign clients. And in the dollars that we've earned, essentially, we've invested that into dollar investments so that we can tap into the power of the global markets. And when we do that, essentially, when we get these investments that grow as if they're US dollars, they're Singaporean dollars, but we're spending in peso, we're making the most out of our money. So this is actually a picture of our condominium unit in Iloilo, which is where we plan to retire, right? So I can imagine myself, when I took this picture, I imagine myself in my 60s to 70s, just sitting on the porch with coffee in hand or beer, whichever I want that day. And, there's just dollars coming into my account because I invested in the global markets. So that's the power of cost of living and geo arbitrage. Now let's go down into the math. And I hope that you stick around to see the numbers. It's going to be highly interesting, especially once you start to see the results. So imagine once again the 45,000 pesos, right? So for the sake of keeping this very simple, if you put in 45,000 pesos directly into an account, you have the 1,080,000 pesos. But if you dollar cost average it, meaning the 45,000 put across, across a set number of months for 24 months, and what you're essentially doing there is you're now tapping into the power of that compounding growth as early as you start investing. So instead of getting 1,080,000, you actually have 1.19 or 1.2 million pesos after 20 months, 24 months to be exact. And so your portfolio value after 2 years is no longer just 1,080,000, it's now 1.19 million pesos. And so now you see over just 2 years just how much your money grows. But that's not where it stops, because this is just the first phase, which is the sprint, the 24 months that you invest the million pesos. But once again, like I said earlier in the example that I shared, this number is just something that will last for a short while. So I'm 35 years old as I record this, and by the time I'm 36 years old, we're gonna be done with this plan. And when we're done with this plan, essentially what's gonna happen is we're gonna now have this portfolio value after 2 years. But see, after 2 years of investing, what's going to happen is we're not going to pull it out. We're just going to keep it in that investment account. And what's going to happen is it's going to coast over time, specifically over 30 years. Because by the time I'll be 65 years old, and when we're 65, essentially, that's when I start to tap into that investment account. But see, when we start that investment, we started with about a million pesos. By the time that we're 65 years old, that million pesos, because of the power of time, the time horizon, and also the power of the growth rate, the 10% that the S&P 500 has historically given, that 1 million pesos will now turn into 20 million pesos. And that 20 million pesos, again, I mean, like it will happen over a long period of time without contributing anything completely, just reinvesting the growth, the dividends, not touching the money. Phase two, what's going to happen is it's that 1 million will grow to 20 million pesos. And that's the power of coast financial independence. When you invest early on and you let time and growth rate work for you, and then now you can tap into the power of geo arbitrage and adjust to your cost of living. If you have 20 million pesos and you live in the US, that's not going to last you very long. But if you invest it in the US and you live in the Philippines or in Singapore in the Philippines, that's going to be highly powerful. Why? Let me show you the numbers. Because based on the 4% withdrawal rule, I made a completely different video about that. I can link it in the description if you want. And with your 20 million portfolio, you withdraw 4% every year, because if you withdraw 4%, that's the most safe withdrawal rate. If your money just grows by 4%, just take out the 4% growth and then you leave the 20 million. What that means that every year you're going to have about 800,000 pesos in passive income that you can withdraw. And 800,000 pesos is 66,000 pesos a month in income just by putting in a million pesos. You see money work for you, not the other way around. And that's what you want to do when you build wealth, when you build generational wealth that can give you financial independence, the freedom that you need so that you can live the life that you want to live, hopefully in the most comfortable manner. This is not the only income that we've built, by the way. We have other investments. But if we put all of our investments together, it's going to allow us to live comfortably, and we're not going to have to worry about money. And more importantly, my children will not have to worry about my money. And so they can build their own lives. That's what we want to achieve here. So, all of this to say, right, it really brings me back to this why. It's not just about money. Some people will probably watch this video and say, oh, you're just some guy who loves to crunch numbers. I love to crunch numbers because of these two amazing girls. Because if I do the math right today, these girls will have a better future. And that has to be the drive for us. I hope that you're watching this video not as someone who just wants to get rich because you just love having a big bank account. But I hope that as you watch this video, you realize that having the kind of wealth that I can build if I do the math right, if I have patience and I have discipline and I invest and I educate myself properly, that I can give the next generation a better life. So hopefully this video was helpful for you, and hopefully it was inspiring enough and the math was convincing enough to show you that if you have a million pesos today, then you can definitely build generational wealth and have financial independence in the future, so that your children and their children's children will also be able to live a life of comfort, and that they can also pursue their destiny as well. Thank you so much, and please hit the subscribe button, follow if you found this helpful. I continue to make more videos for more Filipinos so that we can build financial independence together. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye.